Hello. Today we are going to read Corduroy by Dan Freeman. Corduroy is a very sweet and very curious teddy bear. There he is. If you have a teddy bear or another stuffed buddy that you would like to hold and snuggle with while we tell the story, go ahead and pause this video and go get your bear or your other fuzzy buddy. And we'll wait right here. All right, let's begin our story. You are going to see Corduroy on almost every page of this book. So as I'm reading, I want you to look and see if you can spot where he is. He's kind of easy to see on this first page, but when I get to each page, look and see if you can find him. Corduroy is a bear who once lived in the toy department of a big store. Day after day, he waited with all the other animals and dolls for someone to come and take him home. Did you see him? There he is. The store was always filled with shoppers buying all sorts of things, but no one ever seemed to want a small bear in green overalls. Can you see him in this picture? There he is. Sorry, there's a little bit of glare today. See if I can tilt it. There. Then one morning, a little girl stopped and looked straight into Corduroy's bright eyes. "Oh, Mommy," she said, "look, there's the very bear I've always wanted." "Not today, dear," her mother sighed. "I've spent too much already. Besides, he doesn't look new. He's lost the button to one of his shoulder straps." There he is. Corduroy watched them sadly as they walked away. His sad face. "I didn't know I'd lost a button," he said to himself. "Tonight I'll go and see if I can find it." Late that night, while the shoppers had all gone home and the doors were shut and locked, Corduroy climbed carefully down from his shelf. And he began searching everywhere for his lost button. Suddenly, the floor was moving under him. Quite by accident, he had stepped on an escalator. And up he went. Could this be a mountain, he wondered. I think I've always wanted to climb a mountain. And there he is going up the escalator. Wow, look at this page. See if you can find Corduroy in this picture. He stepped off the escalator as it reached the next floor, and there before his eyes was a most amazing sight. Tables and chairs and lamps and sofas and rows of beds. "This must be a palace," Corduroy gasped. "I guess I've always wanted to live in a palace." Did you find Corduroy on this page? Do you see him? There he is. He looks so small amongst all of those things. He wandered around admiring the furniture. "This must be a bed," he said. "I've always wanted to sleep in a bed." And up he crawled onto a large, thick mattress. All at once, he saw something small and round. "Why, here's my button," he cried, and he tried to pick it up, but like all the other buttons on the mattress, it was tied down tight. He yanked and pulled with both paws until, pop, off came the button, and off the mattress Corduroy toppled. He fell down into a tall floor lamp. Over went the lamp with a crash. Corduroy didn't know it, but there was someone else awake in the store. It was the night watchman. He was going his rounds on the floor above when he heard the crash and came dashing down the escalator. "Now, who in the world did that?" he exclaimed. "Somebody must be hiding around here." He flashed his light under and over the sofa and beds until he came to the biggest bed of all. Do you see Corduroy in this picture? And there he saw two fuzzy brown ears sticking out from under the covers. Look, there's his ears. "Hello," he said. "How did you get upstairs?" The watchman tucked Corduroy under his arm and carried him down the escalator. There's the bear. And set him on the shelf in the toy department with the other animals and dolls. Look, can you find him in this picture? Look at his face. How do you think he feels in this picture? Do you think he looks tired? I do, and I bet he is tired from all of his adventures. Corduroy was just waking up when the first customers came into the store in the morning, and there, looking at him with a wide, warm smile, was the same little girl he'd seen only the day before. She came back. "I'm Lisa," she said, "and you're going to be my very own bear. Last night I counted what I've saved in my piggy bank, and my mother said I could bring you home." There she is, paying for Corduroy. "Shall I put him in a box for you?" the saleslady asked. "Oh, no, thank you," Lisa answered, and she carried Corduroy in her arms. Do you see Corduroy? Here he is in Lisa's arms. She ran all the way up 4 flights of stairs into her apartment and straight to her own room. Corduroy blinked. There was a chair and a chest of drawers, and alongside a girl-sized bed stood a little bed, just the right size for him. The room was small, nothing like that enormous palace in the department store. "This must be home," he said. "I know I've always wanted a home." Lisa sat down with Corduroy on her lap and began to sew a button on his overalls. "I like you the way you are," she said, "but you'll be more comfortable with your shoulder strap fastened." "You must be a friend," said Corduroy. "I've always wanted a friend." "Me too," said Lisa, and gave him a big hug. And there he is. What did you think of that story? Can you give your buddy a big hug? Do you remember where your buddy came from? Did it come from a toy store like Corduroy, or was it a gift from somebody? In this story, Corduroy had all kinds of adventures. If you have your buddy with you, we're going to act it out now. First, he sat up on the toy shelf, so hold him up high. Then he crawled down to have an adventure. The next thing you know, he was on the escalator. Do you know what an escalator is? It is like a set of stairs that goes up all by itself. You may have been on one in a store or an airport or a shopping mall. So there's Corduroy. And suddenly he was on the escalator and he was going up, up, up. He thought he was climbing a mountain. And when he got to the top, he found a bed. He climbed up onto the bed. Can you make your bear or your buddy climb up onto your arm like that? And then he's looking and he found a button. And he picked the button and he pulled and he pulled and poof, it broke off and he fell down. Make your bear go down. Next thing you know, the night watchman found him. He saw his ears peeking up from the bed, and he picked him up and he took him Here we go. Down the escalator, down, down, down. And then he was back on the shelf. The next day Lisa came, she bought him, she cuddled him in her arms, cuddle your buddy, and she took him home. And as soon as she got home, she ran up the stairs with him, took him to her room where he had his own bed. Thank you for listening to my story today. Next, I'm going to show you an enrichment activity that we can do together if you would like. We are going to make Corduroy's button. Because remember, the story was all about Corduroy trying to find his button. Here's what you're going to need. And if you need to stop the video so you can gather what you need, go right ahead. First, you need some cardboard. I think an old cereal box or any kind of food packaging like this works great. So go find a box. You're gonna need something round that you can trace. This is the lid from a jar of mayonnaise. Any kind of jar lid or a tin can would work really well if it was still full. That you don't wanna have one that's already been cut because it might be sharp, but a can or a jar lid to trace. A few crayons would be nice, so you can do a little bit of coloring. And then, oh yes, and scissors. We'll need scissors to cut our circle out. And if you have a hole punch, that's great. We'll punch holes in your button to make it. But if you don't have a hole punch, that's okay. We can still make our button with some markers or crayons. So if you need a few seconds to gather your materials, go ahead, pause the video. All right, let's get started. The first thing we're gonna do is make the button. Do you remember what shape Corduroy's button is? It's the shape that most buttons are, but not all. Corduroy's button was a circle. So we need to make a circle out of that cardboard that you found. You probably need an adult to help you to cut a piece of the cardboard off of the box that we're going to use. So you cut your cardboard so that you can easily trace on it. And we're going to put the circle on top of the cardboard. And again, if you need some help, ask an adult to help you. They can help hold this steady while you trace around it. Then with your crayon, we're going to trace around the circle, all the way around. There's my circle. Next, we're gonna get to have some cutting practice, which is perfect because we practice cutting a lot when we do our vision support. We are gonna cut out that circle. Do your best to stay close to the line. And if you can't see the line that you traced very well, ask your big helper to trace that line for you with like a black marker, a Sharpie, or any kind of dark colored marker would make that a little easier for you to see. So you can ask someone to help trace over that so that you can see it better. We're going to cut out our circle. Watch your scissors, make sure they're right on the line. There's my circle. Now, if you're still cutting and you need a little more time to catch up, just pause the video until you get your circle cut out. Now, from here we have two options. If you have a hole punch, we're going to make this one, and I'm going to show you how. But if you don't have a hole punch, it's okay. Next, I'm going to show you how to make one with this circle that doesn't need a hole punch. So first of all, if you have a hole punch, we're going to punch 4 holes in here, and I'm going to draw dots to show you where they go. It's almost like the 4 corners of a box. You know, I'm going to use my black marker so it's a little easier for you to see at home, but you can use a crayon. A crayon is fine. There's my 4 dots. Now we're going to use our hole punch, and we're going to punch a hole in each dot. And those are just like the holes in a button. Now the next thing you need, and I forgot to mention this earlier, so if you didn't read the directions before we started the video and you need to run out and get this, go right ahead. You're going to need a piece of yarn or string or rope, or an old shoelace works really well. So some kind of yarn or string. And then this is optional, but sometimes I feel like it's a little easier if you're trying to thread through holes, to use a twisty. So if you have any of these twisties laying around, this might make it a little easier, but if you don't, it will still work. So I am going to wrap the twisty around the yarn, and it almost makes like a little needle. And that's just going to make it a little easier to put that through the holes. Now here's how we're going to thread the button. We're going to come up through a hole. We're going to go down at an angle, almost like we're making a letter X. Then we're going to come up through one of the other holes and go down to the last hole that you haven't gone through yet. And now we're just going to tie the yarn off in the back, and you can ask for help with any of this that you need help with. We're going to tie off our yarn and trim the ends. And then if you would like to color your button, you can just use a crayon and color that button. And there's my button. Now, if you didn't have a hole punch or a way to make holes in your button, I'm going to show you really quickly another way that you can make Corduroy's button. We're going to start the same way, so we're going to use a crayon or a marker, and we're just going to draw the four circles so it kind of looks like a box. It's like the four corners of a square. There's our four circles. Then use another marker or a dark colored crayon, and we're just going to connect them to make an X. So it's almost like you're drawing where the yarn would go. There's my yarn. And of course, if you would like to color it in with a crayon, you can. Buttons come in all kinds of colors. You might even have buttons on your shirt or your pants that you're wearing right now. Do you have a button? What color is your button? Is it green like mine? Is it round or is it another shape? Thank you so much for joining me today for our story about Corduroy and his adventure to find his button. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.